humanist perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Welcome back, folks. We're really glad to have you here with us. My name is Harry Greenberger, and I host this show and have done so for a number of years. My guest today was a guest of this show some time back, but I want to welcome Walter Block, and I'm going to have to read his credentials because it's more than I can remember. Walter Block is the Harold E. Worth Eminent Scholar Endowed Chair and Professor of Economics of the Joseph A. Butt S.J. College of Business, Loyola University New Orleans. I got all that right. Now, Walter, it's been a while since you were on the show, and I would like to just determine whether you are still an advocate of the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Do you still require some of your students to read the 1,100 pages of Atlas Shrugged? I'm sure that endears you to them. Would you still define yourself as a libertarian?
Well, yes to all three. I am still a fan of Ayn Rand and her objectivist school, although I don't agree with her 100%, but I don't agree with anyone 100%, even me. Sometimes I change my mind.
I hope you agree with me, but go ahead.
Well, you're an exception. I agree with you on everything. With regard to Atlas Shrugged, yes, my introductory class reads that book because that is the book that turned me on to economics, and I'm trying to turn my students on to economics. And yes, I certainly am a libertarian.
Okay, well now, since I mentioned that you had been on our show some years ago, and I think folks know that our show, in addition to appearing once a week on Cox Cable in New Orleans, can be seen at various sites on the internet. Well, if you go into YouTube, you can then see like a menu of past shows, and YouTube tells you how many visits that particular show received. And I want to tell you that your appearance on my show has had more visitors than any other show that I did. Now, when I asked Walter how he accounted for that before now, he said, probably because he's so beautiful, and I'm going to let that explanation stand. Now, today we're going to talk about rights. Now, our Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, Amendment number 1, guarantees rights: the right to speech, the right of religion, to assemble, freedom of press. Did I leave anything out?
I think you got it.
All right. In spite of that constitutional guarantee, for 200 years or more, people have felt like they've had some of their rights denied. And that's what we're going to talk about, because you are not a person who admires government in general, and I'm sure that you particularly don't care for governmental action which denies people freedoms. Now, there are a number of different kinds of rights that we're going to talk about. But we're going to do two shows, Walter. We're going to do one today. We're going to talk about rights that interfere with our personal limitations. And we're going to do another show on social restrictions, all right? So we have, you and I identified a number of subjects where some of our rights are being restricted. We'll just start with one, which is drug legalization. Tell us about that.
Well, I favor drug legalization, not only of marijuana and not only for medical purposes, but certainly for recreational purposes as well, or any purposes, aesthetic, who knows, and also cocaine, heroin, whatever, for adults, between consenting adults, not for children. Children are a special case. We have to keep them safe. Now, I don't favor the use of these drugs. I don't use any of them myself. So we have to distinguish between the case for legalization and the case for use. I'm not advocating the use of any of them, except maybe for glaucoma or some medical purposes. I get my kicks in other ways. But
we can talk about that later. But now there is a federal law which identifies illegal drugs, right? You think that law should be rescinded? Is it a constitutional or is it just a legislative action?
Well, I think it would be legislative.
All right, and you feel that should just be reversed?
Yes.
That the federal government and consequently the state and local governments should not have restrictions on any use of any drugs. How about the department which approves medicinal drugs after they've been thoroughly tested? Should that be abolished as well?
The FDA, Food and Drug Administration. Let me just get back to drugs like heroin and cocaine just for 1 second. The initial start was the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914 or 1916, somewhere in there, and it was a racist law against the Chinese. They had opium dens, and it had nothing to do with drugs or safety or anything. It was just anti-Chinese. We also had a prohibition of a different kind of drug, namely alcohol, and it was called prohibition, and young Italian men were shooting each other over turf. Now you have young black men. I'm not sure why it's Italian this time and black now, and not the reverse. That's a different issue. But young men are shooting each other like flies in our city, New Orleans. Every weekend you hear about something like this.
You're talking about because they are illegally involved in the trade of drugs.
Right.
Whereas I assume you're saying if there were no restrictions, that kind of warfare would disappear.
Right. There's no more warfare right now over wine. You can go to Rouse's and get wine. And if Walgreen could sell heroin, there'd be no shooting over that either. So this is a disgrace and a horror, and it really should be eliminated. One, because it's a racist law at the inception, and two, because it's creating great havoc. One of my favorite heroes, Lenny Bruce, died of an overdose of heroin or impure heroin. And the story is that the police knew that it was impure heroin, but they wanted to get him because he was the first one to use the F word in public and nightclubs. So this is just a horror upon a horror upon a horror. And I think we should eliminate all these drug laws. Now, for the FDA, we should eliminate that too. Food and Drug Administration, we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. If the FDA approves of it, then we can use it, and if they don't approve of it, we can't. Why shouldn't we have a competitive industry of certification? The Acme industry, Harvard Medical School, the Harry Greenberger Institute of Drug Approval.
I approve of that.
Okay, we should have a competitive industry. Look, we had thalidomide. Thalidomide was a drug that was good for morning sickness for women, but had unfortunate effects on
the babies,
malformation of babies. Well, the German FDA approved of this. The U.S. FDA didn't disapprove of it. It's sort of a complicated issue. This is sometimes called a type 1 error, where they approve of a bad drug. So now they're really scared, and they commit type 2 errors, where they won't approve of a drug unless it's 10,000 years, I'm exaggerating, and $20 zillion. So a lot of people are dying because they can't get the drug. Look, these illegitimi, I don't want to use the B word here, persons are on the last stages of cancer and they've been given 3 weeks to die and they want to try some a drug that hasn't been approved by these people, and they won't let them. Isn't that despicable? I mean, I want to throw the dice and try this, and maybe it'll save me, and they won't let me? This is horrible.
A pharmaceutical company which develops a new effective drug gets a patent, and they can charge any amount they want for it. Do you feel that that is also should be changed?
Well, I'm also against intellectual property, but we're getting off the subject.
Okay,
well, it's
right.
okay to get off
we
the
can talk
subject,
about
but
that later.
no, it's a good topic, but it's not the same thing as its own issue. Should we have patents and copyrights? And as a libertarian, I oppose that. I favor property rights only for things that are scarce. Like if you take my watch, I don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. But if one girl puts her hair up in a ponytail and another girl sees that and says, "Oh, that's a great idea, I'll put my hair up in a ponytail," the first girl still has her hair in a ponytail. The second girl isn't taking anything from her that the first girl now doesn't have. So ideas we can all have because they're not scarce once they're heard. So the idea of intellectual property is dead from the neck up. I think we should eliminate patents and copyrights. Now the issue is, well, will we have more innovations and more inventions if we have patents or copyrights or not? And I say at the beginning of the inception of these ideas, yes, we have more ideas because now you have an incentive to invent the bicycle or to invent the light bulb or whatever. However, after a while, instead of inventing something directly, you have to go around all sorts of patents, and now a lot of very bright people, lawyers and chemists and engineers are fighting over who has what right to what idea instead of inventing new things. So I think the issue there is we'll have paradoxically less new stuff with the present system than if we got rid of this
Okay, now we have some other topic, a number of other topics. The next one maybe we should talk about is gun control. Now the government right now pretty much doesn't control it because the Second Amendment says you have a right to own firearms. You want that to stand? Is there a problem there with this non-restriction on the ownership of firearms?
Well, I say thank God for the Second Amendment, but I'm an atheist, so I'm just kidding about the God part. But
okay.
Thank goodness for the Second Amendment because it allows people to have guns. Look, take these mass shootings in the movie theater or in campuses. There was one recently in Oregon where some guy sprays bullets all over the place. 92% of these cases are in gun-free zones. If you're in a gun-free zone, law-abiding people won't have a gun. So if I'm a maniac and I want to shoot people and I want to get away with it, I'll go there. Why doesn't anyone go to a gun show or to a police station and start spraying bullets around? Because they know they're going to get shot. So yes, we shouldn't have gun control. I mean, you have to have some sort of license or whatever, or concealed carry permit, or the government shouldn't do that, but that's a whole other issue. I'm not saying that unqualified people should have a gun. You should know how to shoot it or whatever, how to clean the gun, how to do it safely. But on college campuses, in the Olympics they have two events. In the Winter Olympics, it's the biathlon where you you ski, then you shoot a rifle, and then you ski some more. Mm-hmm. And in the summer they have pistol shooting. Well, why don't we have girls' teams on target shooting? I'll tell you, if we did that, we wouldn't need any of these take back the night marches because girls are afraid of being molested. You mean if they were carrying a pistol in their side pocket? If they had a pistol in their pocketbook, and we knew that we had a girls' team, we have volleyball, basketball, target shooting, whatever. Campuses would be very much safer. But people can carry firearms, and you get a permit even to have a concealed one, so that is not being restricted. But what about when the Second Amendment was written? I guess the most powerful firearm was a rifle, musket. But should people have the right to have these machine guns and multiple bullet that can multiple firing? That was not in the concept when the amendment was written because they didn't exist. Should there be any restrictions? Absolutely not. Look, if I wanted to have an anti-aircraft
missile in my backyard, you think that's okay?
Well, let's forget about missiles for a second. Let's just talk about guns. We'll get to missiles and atomic bombs if you want. In
Okay,
a minute.
but a missile is a firing machine. Okay,
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Let's just talk about the Second Amendment and guns. The reason for it was not so much to fight criminals, although that was always there. It was to fight the government because they were afraid that the government would take over and be totalitarian.
In fact, that's what it was written for.
Absolutely, and the muskets that they had were the same as the muskets that the government had. Look, take the case of the Jews in Germany. If every Jew had a gun, would there have been a Holocaust? What's his name? The black guy running for Republican?
Yeah, well, I know who you're talking
Dr.
about.
Carson, I think, mentioned this after I did. I wrote about it before he did. I published it in the Loyola Maroon, our paper. And the point is, if I were Hitler and the Jews are vermin, I'm not saying that. I'm trying to get into Hitler's thinking. And I have a choice. I want to get rid of the Jews. And if they don't have guns, well, get them. But if they all have guns, it's going to take maybe a regiment or a division of Aryan soldiers to get rid of him. Maybe instead of killing him, I'll just evict them and say, okay, all out, provided you don't shoot any Germans. The point is that if they were all armed, these thugs that would molest them on the streets would think twice. An armed society is a polite society.
Okay, but there's nothing preventing that. You have freedom, the Constitution does not prevent everybody from being armed.
Yeah, but the Constitution allows all sorts of places that are gun-free zones, like public universities are gun-free zones, and it's owned by a private university should be able to make up its own
but now
rules.
that is not in the Second Amendment. Is there legislation then that provided gun-free zones? How is that? How does that come about?
No, it's not legislation. It would be like, say, I don't know, UNO is a public university, and it has a rule that you can't have a gun there, say.
All right. Now, but
Tulane and Loyola also, but they're private.
But let's say UNO said no guns on campus. Someone wanted to go to court and say the Constitution says I have the right to have a gun. What happens there?
I'm not lawyer enough to know that. I'm an economist and I'm a libertarian theoretician. You're asking me a question of what will the courts do, and I really don't know what they'll do. But what I'm saying is that even for private universities like Tulane and Loyola, talking about New Orleans, they're very unwise. It's their right. It's private property. They can do it. Look, in your house or in my house, I can say no guns. Fine. But I think it's unwise. If somebody came into my class and started spraying bullets, I would like half of my students to have a gun and me to have a gun and shoot him back.
Exactly.
And if the molester knew this, he probably wouldn't come to my class in the first place.
All right. My understanding is that in this country, there are as many firearms as the size of the population. Who has all those guns? Where, I don't think every citizen has one. Who has all those guns?
Well, some people have 5, 10, 15, and 20 guns. Many people have no guns.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like anything else. You and I have many, many books. Some people have no books. So it might be that there's one book for every person, 350 million books. I don't know. But I think many people have none, and some people have one, and some people have many, many. So that's why you get one per person on
all
average.
right. So as a libertarian, you're satisfied with the Second Amendment?
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's talk about something else.
Okay.
That you may not be satisfied with.
Okay, let's do that.
Why don't we talk about the death penalty?
I favor the death penalty. I don't favor the government doing it because the government is inept and immoral and disgusting anyway, so the government shouldn't do anything. As an anarchist, I don't think we should have the government. But let's not get off on that because I like to discuss one issue at a time.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what happens. You kill me. You're a dirty dog, you killed me. What did you do? You took my life.
Yes.
Now look, if you took my wristwatch, the first thing that we should do in a just punishment is make you give me back my wristwatch. Then
Or
we're gonna
go to jail as a thief.
We're going to do other things also, but at least you have to give me back my wristwatch. Now, suppose we had this machine, and we will have this machine in 5,000 years or 10,000 years if we don't blow ourselves up before then, that could put my dead body, and you're the murderer, and your live body in this machine, and now we flip the switch, and the life goes out of you and into me. Would we be justified in forcing you, the live murderer, into this machine with me, the dead body? Yeah, because you took my life. And the very least you should have the decency to do, or you should be made to do by law, is give me back my life because you stole it, you
Okay.
dirty, rotten murderer.
All right. So
I hope you don't mind me
but
making
the
you a
year
murderer.
that we are living in now,
We don't-
what should be done to a murderer?
We don't have that machine, but with the ability, or with the example of the machine, I've now proved that at least stipulating that you are actually the murderer and we're not getting an innocent man, that there's nothing wrong per se with the death penalty. Now, let's get back to reality. We don't have the machine, but you owe me a life. I'm dead, but now my wife and little kids are bereft of my earning power. My wife say, little kids should own you because they have a right to your life, which we've now demonstrated with this machine. And if they want to execute you, or if my wife wants to execute you and maybe charge admission for a public execution, I think she has that right. If she wants to make you a slave for the rest of your life, remember, she owns you. Now, look, ordinarily I'm against slavery for innocent people, but you're not an innocent person. You killed me. I hope you don't mind me making you into a murderer.
That's quite
I'm just
all right.
Using it as an example.
I may want to before the show's over.
Please hold back. I hope this is a gun-free zone. I hope you don't have a gun. I'm sure you're kidding. We're all buddies. You're not going to do that. But the point is that my wife now owns you, and she can't torture you because you didn't torture me. You shot me cleanly. If you tortured me to death, then she could torture you to death and maybe make more money from a public display of torturing you. So obviously, by the use of this magical machine, we've established that the death penalty is justified, at least philosophically. And now we have to get back to reality and say, well, we don't have this machine. Look, if people were like cats and had 9 lives, you would owe me a life, and maybe 2, because I believe in 2 teeth for a tooth, but that's another issue.
All right,
so to finally answer your question, yes, I believe in the death penalty theoretically.
Okay, but if the victim had no close relatives who could own them, what then?
Well, in the Libertarian Society, all murders would take place on private property because everything would be private property. Every square inch would be private property. And the murder had to take place somewhere.
Okay.
And whoever owns that private property would then
Have the right to decide what to do.
Yeah, sort of be the substitute of the heir.
All right, well, so that situation is, in my mind, a little bit murky. All right, let's talk about something else.
Go get him.
Let's talk about the fact that this earth that we live on is running out of its resources. Now, what role should the government play in light of that dire situation?
Well, first of all, we're not running out of resources. There was a very, very famous bet between Paul Ehrlich and Julian Simon. Paul Ehrlich is a watermelon. Green on the outside but red on the inside, namely a left-wing environmentalist.
Okay.
There are certain people that just love running other people's lives. And for a while they were doing pretty well with communism. Then came 1989 and the communism sort of fell apart and they had to hitch their wagon to something else. And they decided environmentalism is a good way to run other people's lives. So Paul Ehrlich, left-wing, pinko, watermelon, had a bet with Julian Simon, one of my, actually a friend of mine, recently deceased, a libertarian, and the bet was, are we running out of resources? And they agreed that if we run out of resources, then the relative price of resources would rise, and if we're not, then it would fall. And they had like a 5-year time period, and I think they bet $10,000, and guess who won? Julian Simon won. Namely, the price of these resources, I forget what it was, corn and copper and zinc and potatoes or something like that.
What about potable water? That is a problem around the world. There are places right now where people, just can't even get enough water to drink. Should the government have some role in that?
Well, first of all, let me just get back to the resources for 1 second.
Okay.
The reason we never run out of resources is as we start running out of resources, the price of them rises. If we run out of zinc or zinc is in short supply, the price of zinc rises. If the price of zinc rises, other people look for more zinc and other people look for substitutes for zinc, and you and I use less zinc because it's now more expensive and demand curves slope downward. So we're never going to run out of anything. Except every once in a while we shoot something off to outer space or something. So we're running out of those resources, but that's very small. Now, with regard to water, it's just interesting that my most recent book, which ought to be coming out by the end of this year or very early next year, depending upon the publisher, is why we should privatize oceans, rivers, lakes, and mud puddles and aquifers and everything else. And the reason we have problems with water is because your favorite institution, I don't want to say that, but some people's favorite institution, government, is screwing up the works. There's such a thing called acre-foot. Acre-foot of water is several million gallons of water that it takes to fill a swimming pool 1 acre in size, 1 foot high. And the price of an acre-foot for farmers is like $5 an acre-foot, very, very low. They subsidize it. So in California, they grow crops that are really not good for desert-like conditions. Whereas in the cities, the acre-foot is, $500 or $600 or something like that. Now, you'd think that you can't have two different prices for the same good. So if it's $5 here and $500 there, people would sell it, and you get some sort of intermediate price, and you'd have some rational allocation of resources. But no, the government won't allow that. So we have all these horrible prices and crises of shortages of water. All due to the government. If we had, look, in Venezuela, where they run water the way, where they run everything the way we run water here, they can't even get toilet paper. We can get toilet paper because if somehow there was a shortage of toilet paper, the prices would go up, profits in toilet paper would go up, and more people would produce toilet paper. So there's no toilet paper crisis here. But there is a water crisis here because they won't allow prices of water.
Well, I just mentioned water as one of the resources. We've just got a couple of minutes left. We can stay on this subject for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to have to say so long. There are other resources which you hear people, knowledgeable scientific people say we're depleting. That's not a problem?
Well, take the elephant. Or ivory, or the rhino, which is a resource that is endangered or being endangered of going extinct. Again, the reason for it is that the government will not allow private ownership. Look, take the cow and the buffalo. The cow and the buffalo are about the same size animal. For non-biologists, they're the same animal. They're big, they're smelly, they have milk. If you crash into one of them, you're in trouble. The cow never came within 1 million miles of being extinct. The buffalo almost became extinct. And there was a stupid movie, the Pinko movie, Dances with Wolves, the white man is killing the buffalo. No, there's this thing called economics called the tragedy of the commons. When you own it in common or when you don't own it, you have no incentive to take care of it because if you save it, you don't have it tomorrow. The buffalo is in the next county tomorrow, whereas you own the cow. So if you kill a cow, you lose a cow tomorrow. Whereas if you kill a buffalo, you lose nothing tomorrow because you wouldn't have had the buffalo anyway. So the key is to cowize the buffalo, or since the elephant is just a big cow, as far as an economist is concerned, with a funny-looking nose and some tusks or something, privatize the elephant. And then let us, people can shoot the elephant if they want, but if I own an elephant and you want to shoot an old male elephant, old males like us, price is a little lower.
You're saying that the government should not have the right to take any position on the continuation of any of our earthly assets.
The government should allow privatization of the elephant, and then the elephant would be saved.
Okay, well, folks, we thank you for watching our show. We hope you'll be with us again.